Welcome, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tomer Yavitz. I'm a member here at the IAS and part of the joint Princeton IAS Colloquium Committee. And on behalf of everyone in that committee, I'm delighted to welcome you all to a new academic year. And with that, to kick off our fall series of colloquia. We are delighted to have Ting Li here from the University of Toronto to give our first colloquium of the year, of the fall. Ting got her PhD from Texas A&M. After that was a Leon Letterman Fellow at Fermilab. After that, she was a NASA Hubble Fellow, spent her time with a joint appointment between Carnegie and Princeton, although I understand that between a combination of factors related to the pandemic and getting a faculty job fairly early, Ting actually never made it to Princeton. But good news is we have colloquia, and we can invite her here to give a colloquium to make good on her being here. Ting specializes in near field cosmology, and it's particularly a nice and warm, fuzzy topic for me because she works and is one of the experts these days on detection, observation, and characterization of stellar streams. She is, I would say, one of the leading experts these days on observing them and on using them to understand the underlying nature of our galaxy, of other galaxies, and of dark matter. Today, Ting will tell us about the power of Milky Way stellar streams enabled by multi-object spectroscopic surveys. So if you will all please join me in welcoming Ting Li to the stage.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Tomer, for a nice introduction, and thanks for having me here. I think I originally wanted to come. Well, I wanted to spend more time here before the pandemic, but unfortunately couldn't make that as a joint Carnegie Princeton Fellow. And I originally was planning to come here early this year to give a colloquium talk. I couldn't make it because my visa took like 3 months to get. Anyway, I'm finally here. Great. Before I move on this talk, I just want to mention that I'm also giving a EDI talk tomorrow at 3 p.m. somewhere at the physics department, I believe. So especially for international students and then for faculties and the postdocs are mentoring the international student, you're welcome to join and hear about some of the advice I'd like to give. Okay, so for the rest, next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about a science topic. So I work a lot on near field cosmology, as Tomer mentioned, but today I'm going to focus on one topic, which is stellar streams. I think I devoted most of my postdoc time on this topic, and I'm going to share a bit of the results that from the two collaboration I am involved in. One is called S5, one is called DESI. I will explain both of them later on, but it's going to be with the theme focused on the stellar streams. So let's start. This movie is a little bit patchy, but you get the idea. So just want to give a very quick background about what are the stellar streams. So here showing you 10 global cluster like falling into a dark matter halo like our Milky Way and then get torn apart. So stellar streams are either dwarf galaxies or global clusters that they get tidally disrupted and form these linear structure over densities on the sky. But before they are completely fully mixed, becomes substructures like maybe you have heard like Gaia sausage or Gaia enceladus or the other substructures. That's kind of the overdensities we see on the sky. So why I think streams are interesting, I think there's a few science that we can explore with stream. I'm going to list some of these here. The first one, I think the stellar streams are very useful tracers for us to understand the formation of the Milky Way, and especially the stellar halo. And I'm going to raise some questions for each of the subcategories to enable some of the thoughts. So the question here would be, what are the building blocks of Milky Way's stellar halo? And also the other question we can ask is, what do the most metal pool stars came from? So these are something connect to the buildup of the Milky Way stellar halo. The second one is about the mass and potential of the Milky Way. So what you see in here, a plot is a review written by Wenting Wang, try to summarize all of the measurement of Milky Way's mass from different tracers and a different methodology. And you probably cannot read it well, but here shows you, this dashed line shows you 0.5 10 to the 12 solar mass. This line shows you 2 times 10 to the 5, and the middle line is 1 times 10 to the 12 solar mass. So this gives you a wide range of the mass of the Milky Way. And if we don't know that very well, then we cannot put our Milky Way into a cosmological context when we compare with simulation. So the question here we can ask is the Milky Way very mass 0.8 or 1.6 times 10 to the 12 solar mass? And we also wanted to know the shape of the Milky Way potential. So is a potential spherical or triaxial? The last one is connect with the dark matter. And so the stream can probe the dark matter subhalo mass function. So here, the two plot you're seeing is from the James Block and Michael Boyan Cochin's review paper, showing you from a CDM, a cold dark matter model, and a warm dark matter model, WDM, how the subhalo mass function would be different. So the question here we can ask about dark matter is dark matter cold or warm or self-interacting? And the other question is, can we find dark matter subhalos at 10 to the 7 solar mass or even lower? And here, the way how stream play a role is the following. So what you're seeing here is a movie made by Dennis Erko showing you the two streams, one on the top and one on the bottom. The bottom one has some perturbations from subhalos. As you can see, as a dark matter subhalo passing through a stream, so if this is a stream, something passing through, then the particles will move towards where the passage comes, the impact comes, and then move away, and then making these kind of gaps because of gravity. So the idea is to find these kind of density variation along the stream to infer the subhalo flyby. And this subhalo doesn't have to have any stars inside. It can be below the 10 to the 7. That is, that's for these kind of dark matter subhalo that never triggered star formation. And some kind of evidence has been seen. So this is the very famous GD1 stream. And on the top is showing you what we see in Gaia data with some proper motion selection. And you can see these member of stars in GD1 show the spur and a gap feature here. And at the bottom is a work done by Banata et al. Showing that with a certain subhalo perturber, with some kind of perturber property, something passed by about 0.5 giga-years ago with a total halo mass about 10 to the 6 solar mass, and passed with a size of 10 parsec. You can mimic such kind of spur and the kink feature. But if you put in the size and the mass diagram, this is where you expect to see. Okay, so this rectangular box, shaded box here, and these are the globular clusters. So it's very similar to the size of a globular cluster. While the CDM predicts if it's a dark matter halo, it should be in this banded area. So this is a much compact perturber than what we thought a normal CDM would predict. So it is interesting to find such a thing. And we know it's not from any of these globular clusters, because when we rewind the orbit of these globular clusters, none of them can make these. It has to be something dark. We don't see them. At least we haven't discovered them yet. But also it has to be much smaller than these Lambda CDM predicted dark matter subhalo. So what it is it really a compact perturber? There's also other work that I published in the same year from De Broglie et al. Saying that such a spur and a kink feature can be caused or might be caused by interaction with the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy. So I think it's cool we find such kind of things, but also there are many more questions we're trying to answer and to know like what is causing this and whether it's connected with dark matter subhalo. Okay, so with that, I think that's kind of what I think stream can tell us to answer these questions. And that's kind of the thing that I'm interested in and would like to explore. So in terms of the actual streams in the sky, this is what we are seeing. So this is northern sky that from Sloan Digital Sky Survey DR8. So you have the Sagittarius stream, which from the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, I mentioned earlier. GD1 is the first global cluster stream that we find, but we don't have a progenitor. And the Alpha stream here is the first dwarf galaxy that we find has no progenitor. And there's also Palma 5 stream that has a clear Palma 5 global cluster in the center with the tidal tails. So this is kind of what we know about 15 years ago from Sloan. And how these things are being founded, it's through the following technique. So on the left, you see is isochrone centered at a global cluster. And basically we build a metal pool isochrone and scanning through in distance, right? And then we see in the density map, so this is just in REN deck, and each pixel here tells you how many stars are there. And when you're scanning through this, what we call match filter using isochrone, you see the density pops up and it goes down, and you know where the overdensity is. So this is showing you how this global cluster is at about a distance at about 10 kiloparsec. And we just apply similar technique to the entire sky. In the Northern Hemisphere, that we had a survey called Dark Energy Survey, which I worked on when I was a graduate student. So again, you do the scanning in distance with the metal pool isochrone using most of the May sequence stars. And again, you can see the number of stars in each pixel and then pop up at a particular distance and then disappear at the further distance. So you can see all these linear structure. When we made this map, we found, whoa, there's a lot of interesting structures. And I think we claimed there were about 13 new streams plus 15 Puris nodes. So it's total of 15 streams in this footprint of the Dark Energy Survey. It's about at the North Galactic cap. So this is the South Galactic pole. And then that's different circles. So that's the structures we've been finding. And we also made a colorful map. The idea is you put the density map at a different distance into different colors. So the blue, red, and blue, green, red at a different distance. And then you put a composite the map for the color, and then you know that if it's red, it's farther distance. If it's blue, it's closer by. And we can see these kind of streams there, which is similar to the one that in the northern sky that from Sloan Digital Sky Survey. So this is, of course, before Gaia. Before Gaia came out, that's the major way we find these streams. We use photometry, we measure the density of the stars on the sky at different distance to probe them. But the Gaia definitely be revolutionary because we have parallax and we have proper motion. It's extremely benefit to the nearby streams because with parallax, you can get good distances. So this is the kind of spaghetti map post-Gaia for the streams between 3 to 12 kiloparsec. That's kind of what Gaia is both sensitive at. So this is work from the Stream Finder team in 2021. A lot of these streams most of these streams here are originated from global cluster. That's what we think. Okay, so this is kind of the picture in 2018. So I tried to collect all of the known streams or reported streams from different literature and plotted this cumulative number of streams as function of the year that has been reported. The first one in 1994. By the way, it's 29th year now, so next year will be the 30th anniversary of the discovery of the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy and also the Sagittarius stream. And then later, I think this one is a GD1 stream, and then there's a few more that discovered. So I would say 10 years ago, we don't really only know a hand of them, but in the past, well, this is 2018. I stopped making this plot because I will tell you why it's impossible to count after 2018. But there's so many new ones discovered. None of them had a spectral follow-up. So that's the time I feel, okay, we need to do something. But I just want to highlight one thing. This is about how many? 70 streams back down to 2018. And I think nowadays, I don't know how to count them even because like this paper, they just use a machine learning method. They claim they find 90 new streams that was not previously reported by anyone. And they don't release any of the catalogs. So there's no way for us even to confirm. So this is a word. If you ask me how many streams we know, I don't know the answer. I think down to 2018, I have a good idea. Now easily doubled, but again, this is all people want to do their own follow-up, so it was not published. They didn't make their data public. But anyway, this is a point to tell you there's hundreds of streams now in our Milky Way, according to all this literature, if they are real. Okay, so I was at 2018 when we discovered all of the streams in the DES because I was part of the discovery team that in the Dark Energy Survey, I feel, okay, I know where they are. I know exactly how to find them and point them on the sky. So why not we follow these up? So that's where I started the survey called the Southern Stellar Streams Spectroscopic Survey. These are the key members that assembled at the time when I started the survey. It kind of like a third of people originally from the Dark Energy Survey, which involved in the discovery. A third of them have telescope access because we're using a telescope in Australia. So we need to have a lot of support from the Australian people, and a third of people that I think will be interested in these science and are good. That's why I invited them. I will be very proud that saying, I would say 5 years ago when we started this, half of the people here are postdocs or students, but now only 3 of them, well, in the founding member team, I think only 3 of them are actually haven't got a permanent position, but soon will apply permanent positions, hopefully. And so including myself, I also got a faculty position and because of a lot of work I do here. So I'm gonna give you a brief overview of what S5 is, the Southern Stellar Streams Spectroscopic Survey. So as I said, we find all these streams in the Dark Energy Survey. And also in 2018, Gaia DR2 came out that has a lot of proper motions. It was a great time that we can do a very good, efficient target selection with the high precision photometry from Dark Energy Survey, in which the stream was discovered, and also using the proper motions to select the targets. So what we use, but we still need a telescope that has a wide field of view, and we can observe many stars at the same time because the stream are just so diffuse. So we use this instrument called a telescope called Anglo-Australian telescope. What's unique about it is has a 2-degree field of view and a fiber positioner. So we can target, and it has 400 fibers. So it can target 400 targets at the same time. And then the fibers are feed to a spectrograph called AA omega. So we were using that instrument. I think we had so far 100 nights or more than 100 nights. We are actually just observing right now. I totally forgot, but I'm glad my team is doing by itself. So when I checked the email, check the Slack like 30 minutes before my talk, I thought, oh, they are observing and they have good weather. So that's all good. So they have been taking good care of all the observations for the data. And this is what we use to identify the stream members, measure their velocities, measure their stellar parameters of the member stars. For the brightest members, we also follow up with high resolution spectrograph. So here I'll give you one example is a mic spectrograph on Carnegie at Magellan, owned by the Carnegie Observatory, and which is, I think I started this part with Alex G when we were both Carnegie fellow. When we were both postdoc at Carnegie. So the idea is the brightest star we can follow up with the single object high resolution spectrograph. So we can measure the chemical evolution and the chemical abundances of the stars and just tell about its chemical evolution. Okay, so we had a lot of publication over the past 4 years, starting 2019. I would encourage people to check our website if you're interested in any of the work I'm gonna show in the next 20 minutes, but there's a lot of work that I can only highlight a few of them. This is the picture of the first 3 years of the stream we followed up and the member stars that we published. So there are 12 streams here, and I will mention this 12 stream paper later on. But here we have 5 individual member stars in about 12 streams in the first 3 years of the run from 2018 to 2020, which also made the data public a while ago with DR1 public DR1 release in case people are interested. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to say a bit of what I think S5 did to study the stream and come back to these 3 questions or 3 different categories of science that an interesting stream can address in terms of formation of the Milky Way stellar halo, the Milky Way mass and potential, and the dark matter subhalo mass function. So I'll start one by one. The first one is on the Milky Way stellar halo. So here I want to highlight one stream called Phoenix stream. So this is a stream that we followed up. So here what you're seeing is a distribution of the metallicity. We followed up about 11 member stars. So yeah, we follow up hundreds of stars and we only find about 11 of them, just tell you how diffuse they are. I think we have more than that, but these are the ones that are bright enough that have robust metallicity measurement. So first of all, we find that the metallicity spread of these 11 stars are smaller enough that it can purely explained by measurement uncertainty. So what you're seeing spread here is, so you can see these are the individual member stars and the error bars of the metallicity as a function of signal to noise here. So the point to show is that there is a little bit of a width here, but that width can be explained by just the measurement uncertainty. So we think this stream is originated from a globular cluster because it has no metallicity dispersion. What else is interesting is we plot these together with all the globular cluster we know in our Milky Way that are intact and we still can see them. And this is how the Milky Way galactic globular cluster looks like. So there is what people so call metallicity flow around minus 2.3 or minus 2.4, minus 2.45, that we don't see any of the globular cluster is more metal poor than that. So it's very interesting that in 2020, we published a paper, we show, okay, one of these globular cluster stream that originally from a globular cluster, now fully disrupted, we don't see its progenitor, but we see like a linear kind of overdensity on the sky, that we think it's more metal poor than any of the known globular cluster that we can see in our Milky Way. Is this kind of unique, or it's kind of telling us something about where this metallicity flow of the intact globular cluster come from?
Can I ask a question? You mentioned that these were 11 stars, but there were many other stars. They were field stars. How did you distinguish the stars that were actually part of the sphere?
That's a very good question. So we don't really decide the membership just based on metallicity. We also have velocity, or the line of sight velocity we get. I actually will show you a plot later on to show how we select the members. But basically, it's coming from line of sight velocity we measure, the proper motion from Gaia, and also the distances from isochrone fitting that in the CMD. So we can do two different ways. One is just to select them subjectively, just saying based on its location on all of these parameter space, whether it's a member or not. But later on, when we had a bigger sample, we actually do a mixture model statistically to say whether it's more likely to be a member or not. And then we use metallicity to confirm, like if we select them based on kinematics, and then we come back to the metallicity space, and then we see these stars are very distinct in metallicity compared to the rest of them. So this is how we find these are member stars. But there could be confusion, especially for dwarf galaxy that metallicity spread big. There will be confusions whether it's actually a background star or it is a real member of the stream. I think that's where we do membership mixture model to assign membership instead of just to say it's yes or no. But for globular cluster stream, it's pretty clear most of the case. I hope I answer your question. Anyway, so this is kind of the most metal poor globular cluster stream we see in 2020. But you know, when you say most, usually it doesn't stay forever, and that's what expected. So in 2022, the Princeton team, this is a stream finder by the stream finder group that I mentioned earlier from the Gaia data, and they found the C19 stream. They claim amount was about minus 3.4. I think that's very cool to see something even much lower. Although I think they made that claim based on 5-star or 4-star. So I still don't know if it's really they also claim there is a dark matter halo associated with it. So I don't know if it's actually a dwarf galaxy or globular cluster. I think that's still debating. But anyway, this is to show you guys that there is a lot of these extreme metal poor stars or very metal poor stars that in our Milky Way halo, they are originated from these metal poor globular clusters or stellar system that we are seeing. Maybe these are where the origin of the metal poor stars in our Milky Way halo. Okay, the middle panel I showed earlier is to measure the mass and potential of the Milky Way. Yes?
The centile do they belong to in the metallicities of halo stars in general?
Oh, so usually the rule of thumb is you go down one dex, you go down by 10%, right? So I think that's probably true. So metallicity of -3 is about 1%. Yeah, 1%, or no, -2 is 1%, -3 is 0.1% of the entire star, not just the halo. I think the entire star. There's this MDF of the Milky Way, I think. Yeah, so it's very, very rare. For -3 below, I think you can count it's a few hundred stars in total, we know. Yeah. Okay, so the middle panel, what I'm trying to discuss here is to constrain the mass of the Milky Way and I think I said mass and potential of the Milky Way. What we learned from the S5 follow-up is if we wanted to understand or measure the mass of the Milky Way, we also wanted to measure the mass of the LMC because the Large Magellanic Cloud, which is the biggest satellite galaxy. So here I'm going to show you an example how we use one particular stream to do that. So let me give you a bit of background for those who are not familiar or never been to the Southern Hemisphere to see this. I'm not sure if you can see very well. This is the southern sky. This actually is a Blanco telescope where we used to do the Dark Energy Survey. Some of actually you in the audience has also been involved in. So if you have ever get a chance to go to the Southern Hemisphere, you will see these two blobs or cloud on the sky. That's a large and a small Magellan cloud. These are the two earliest, the biggest satellite galaxy of our Milky Way that you can see with the naked eye. What we learned in the past, I would say 3 or 4 years, not that, I think in 2018 is the time we actually learned about this we all know, I mean, there's still debate, I guess, but we all agree that LMC and SMC, the two satellites, are coming in either in their first or the second infall. So they actually make the Milky Way's halo not in dynamical equilibrium. So this is the kind of the picture how it looks like. This is the Milky Way, the disk, and this is the LMC coming in. So it's not only causing this transient wake, but also make this collective response. The way to think about, I was actually mentioned a little bit in my lunch talk later, but the way you can think about is the LMC is coming in, make the entire Milky Way, especially the halo, not in dynamic equilibrium. And there is a collective response of the Milky Way stellar halo in responding to the inflow of the Milky Way. And furthermore, the center of the Milky Way and the center of the entire the Milky Way disk and the Milky Way halo is not the same because of the inflow of LMC. Okay, so that's something we learned, and how that can tell us how we can do this measurement via stream. And I'm going to show you one example here using this very long stream in the S5 footprint. So this red one, it covers about 200 kiloparsec in physical length and about 200 degrees on the sky, that from all the way from Northern Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere. Actually, the discovery is also a bit complicated, but I'm not going to focus on it. So it was originally as the orphan stream for the northern part, like this part. And then later there's a Shanab stream discovered. And then finally we mapped the entire data with Gaia R-Lyrae and identifies one stream called orphan Shanab. So this is the data we have collected over a course of 4 years from 2018 to 2021. So what we have here, we show is the observations in 6D. So what you're seeing is phi-1. This is along the stream. So the way how we do is just rotate this stream about 60 degrees. So the coordinates, this is along is the phi-1 and this is phi-2. So phi-1 is deferred to something along the stream, and then phi-2 is perpendicular to the stream. So what you're seeing here, the red are the data that we collected, and with some modeling we measured. So phi-1, phi-2, and then distance. These are the distance of the orphan Shanab stream we got from our Lyrae stars, and then proper motion along the stream and proper motion perpendicular to the stream. So that's the proper motion from Gaia, and then this is the velocity, line of sight velocity we measured from S5. So what we know is the redshift 0. What are the location of the streams in all these 5 tracks plus phi-1 in the 6th dimension. And what we're trying to fit is giving a free parameter for the Milky Way, a free Milky Way mass profile, a free parameter of the LMC profile, plus the trajectory, or say the orbit or the current location of LMC and the full 60 of the current LMC. Let's fit it and see how we can get the data. And the model is shown here in cyan, and you will see the past 2 giga-year what the best fit looks like. So often Shanab's progenitor get fully disrupted and then form these long streams. The dark blue here shows you the direction, the arrow show you the direction of each particle. So I hope you see this is basically at the redshift 0, how we can fit our data with this cyan particle. And I'm gonna show the movie again. This time I want you to watch this small dot here. That is basically the LMC. So we show you that the LMC is coming in, and then in the last half giga-year, that it interacts with this part of the stream. So the south part of the stream closely, and it made this strong kind of impact and made this kind of weird shape. And if we don't have LMC, we won't be able to fit the data well. Another evidence showing you, so this is the location of the star, the particles. And here shows you what we expect to see the motion of the star on the 5152 coordinate. So here you can see the stars just moving on the way, right? It's moving along the stream, which makes sense. That's where you assume the particle would move or star would move. But this part, you can see that the stars are moving perpendicular to the stream. And that a strong kind of deviation from the stream track, it is caused by the perturbation of LMC. So we have to put the LMC into the whole game here to fit our data. And here's another way to see this movie, but in the 3D. So here you are seeing, again, the red is what we have for the data. And that's where we see the motion of the stars on this, the motion of the stars on this, in this stream. And this is the modeled particle. And you will see again about half giga-years ago, the LMC will come in and then perturb the southern part of the stream. And if there's no LMC, we expect to see the stream in the black dash line. But because of the stream come in and push it strongly for this southern part, the stream is deviated from the original orbit, where is this black dash line. So LMC play an important role here. And with the 460 data, we can make a good constraint on this. So we not only kind of fit the data, we also measure the mass profile and orbit of LMC. So this is what we get. We fitted the mass density as a function of the distance to the center of the LMC. We allow for arbitrary truncation of the mass profile of the LMC, and test if LMC could be not have a large dark matter halo. And the answer is, in order to fit the data, the LMC's dark matter halo have to be truncated. I don't think you can see the line here. There's another line here. This is 1 sigma, this 2 sigma, here is 70 kiloparsec. So the dark matter halo of LMC must go above 70 kiloparsec. This is another evidence to show that dark matter halo has to exist in the LMC. And on the right, we show that our best measurement in black for the past trajectory of LMC. So that's another way we can constrain the trajectory of LMC. What's bad? Yes? There's a question.
Can I ask you what exactly do you fit in here? The distribution in either position and velocity space or star by star, like how do you make the match between the model and the data?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in total, I think we have about 15 to 20 parameter. We have about 6 parameter. I don't remember exactly. We have the parameter for the Milky Way mass, and then Milky Way's like obliteness, and then the size. And then we have the LMC there as well, which is the LMC mass, LMC size. And we have the current location of LMC in 6D. Adding together, I think it's about 15 parameters. And then what we do is we let the LMC rewind its orbit for 2 giga-year or 3 giga-year. And then we forward modeling, let particle leave the LMC. Sorry. I misspoke. So, and we have another free parameter. The 6th free parameter is for the progenitor of the stream, often Schnapp stream. So we have parameter for LMC mass, mass profile, parameter for Milky Way mass and mass profile. We also have the 6D of the LMC and the 6D of the stream progenitor. And then we take the stream progenitor, rewind its orbit for 3 giga-years. We also rewind the orbit of LMC for 3 giga-years. And then we forward modeling, let the stream particle leave the stream progenitor just by doing something called Lagrangian stripping. So we don't do n-body, we just let the particle leaving the tidal radius of the stream progenitor. And these are the cyan particles you are seeing. So each of them get thrown out from the the center of the progenitor of the stream, and then let it evolve in the potential with the Milky Way and LMC that moving. But the potential is time independent. So the potential is not growing over time, but they are moving as two rigid body over time. And then at the ratio of 0, we compare with the measurement and the model to see if it's a good fit. And then we run this in MCMC to finally get the parameters, if that makes sense. So we have a total about 20 parameters here that associated with the mass profile for Milky Way, mass profile of LMC, and the 6D of LMC and 6D of the Orphan upstream progenitor. I hope I answered your question. We can talk more in detail later. But I do want to make a very good important thing here is you can see that we only have data in red, which is where we see the Orphan upstream. But this model predicts this strong kink or strong deviation of the stream that if our model is correct, we will be able to see these. So that's best thing for observer. You have some measurement, you make a prediction, and you say you predict there's such thing here. Do you see that? So we did follow up, target this area because that's where model predicts, but we cannot see them from the photometry survey anymore because they are so low surface brightness. We have to follow up spectroscopically. So we actually follow this up, this area, and we got some actually detection. So we can confirm the stream member doesn't go this way, which would expect it without LMC. They actually go this way, and we have a follow-up paper that we're currently working on. So that's pretty cool that there's a prediction from our model, and we confirmed it, and hopefully it will be out soon. Okay, another interesting I want to show you guys is in the integral of motion space. So people usually measure energy and angular momentum and say, oh, these things are coming from one progenitor. So you don't expect their energy or angular momentum to change much over time. And this is what we see along the stream. We see this weird V shape. So what's causing that is also because of the LMC. So here from our best fit model that I showed earlier, we show how the energy and angular momentum change for this Orphan stream. Again, there's a slightly different in energy, that's understandable because it's making the stream. But as it over time, that in the past half gig a year, you will see a strong variation in the energy and the angular momentum for the leading arm and the trailing arm, and making this V shape. Again, it's caused by the flyby of LMC that changed the energy and angular momentum strongly. And here how it looks like. So the histogram on the back is basically the model that I showed earlier from our best fit model. And the circles here are the same as the circles here, showing you our observation. So it's not a perfect match because we didn't assume the two potential are deformable. We're assuming the two potential of the Milky Way and LMC are rigid body. But the idea is to show you that people always say we can constrain the mass of the Milky Way using action space or energy angular momentum space clustering, which is not really true if the Milky Way is not in dynamical equilibrium. And that's actually what we see now here. Okay, so I spent a bit more time on the middle part that I use one stream as a case to show you how we can use the stream, like one of these long stream, to constrain the mass of the Milky Way and LMC simultaneously. The goal next is to use all the stream that we have, 460 information, to constrain the mass of the Milky Way and LMC simultaneously. It turns out to be a lot of computational hour. Like for this particular stream, I think we spend several months of CPU hours on supercluster to do all these fitting. So it would be also good to see some other ways to do that because we have like 20-ish parameters here with a few extra free parameters. Okay, so the last part here I want to talk about is on the broken stream perturbed by dark matter subhalo. So here I'm showing you one example that called Atlas stream here and Colloquium stream. So the story is following. I think if you remember that I showed, let me see, go back very quickly. I should probably add a movie here. So if you remember, I showed this movie, oops, this one. If you look at this movie that in the DS footprint, there is a stream here called Atlas stream, this one. And there is another one here this way. This one is another stream we call Colloquium. And those two are considered as two different streams because you can also see they are at slightly different distance. me go back. So when we follow those up, we thought those are two different streams, and we call Atlas stream and Colloquium stream. But when we measure the velocity, so this is a velocity along the stream, we just rotated the whole thing 30 degrees, and then proper motion along the stream, we find that these two, though these are the member stars we identified, we found these two streams are seamlessly connected in the kinematic space. And they also, of course, have identical metallicity. So although it has some kind of kink feature here, and then there's also some broadening feature here, but actually it's one stream, and it has a little bit of distance gradient that this part is a bit farther than the other part. But the idea is it's one stream, but somehow it's broken morphologically. And just to show you, this is something I mentioned earlier called a GD1 stream, right? It is much closer. So this one is about 10 kiloparsec from us. This one is about 30 kiloparsec from us. And that's the one I mentioned earlier, has this spur and gap feature. And it's very interesting that we are seeing a stream that's 3 times further that also has this kind of kink and a broadening feature. Whether they are from the same kind of perturbation or they are both coming from different dark matter subhalo, I think we need more work to study. But I also want to show you that it's not the only unique case. There are many more streams that we are seeing this kind of weird feature that we think might perturbed by dark matter subhalo. Okay, so I have talked about mostly on the stream component in S5, which is our main goal. And I also mentioned earlier that we are doing the high resolution follow-up on brightest members to study the chemical evolution of these streams. I also want to highlight that we are using the spare fibers to look at the halo stars in the footprint of the S5. And also when we find that there are even more fibers, we followed up with the low redshift galaxies using the selection that the Saga survey provided. I don't have time to go through all of those. I'll just highlight one work that we did using the halo targeting, and I think it's very cool. So that is the discovery of this hypovololosis star, S5 HVS1, that we find has a total 3D velocity at 1700 kilometers per second. So I'm gonna first give a very quick introduction. What is hypovololosis star and how we think they are formed. So if in the center of our Milky Way has a supermassive black hole, this is proposed by Jack Hills in 1988, by the way, that a binary comes close to the supermassive black hole, then one get captured and the other one will be ejected out. And that ejected star could be as fast as more than 1,000 kilometers per second. So that's kind of a prediction. And I think that there's a lot of people that devoted their lifetime to searching for these hypervelocity stars. We didn't, I certainly don't know anything about hypervelocity star when I started the survey. I just found that we have spare fibers and we just should look at all of the halo blue metal pool stars because that's what I'm interested in. And so we targeted all the blue stars as blue horizontal branch stars, but a lot of them are just hot blue stars. And so we find this one. I think what's unique about it is when you rewind its orbit, it's exactly coming from the galaxy center with ejection velocity over 1700 kilometers per second. And this is why it's unique compared to all the previous reported hypervelocity star. All the other one has a velocity around 800 when they were ejected, but this one had around something like 1800 kilometers per second. So it's really cool to have such a measurement. This actually is our first scientific result coming from the collaboration before any of the stream work. So you just need to know as a scientist, what you're aiming to do is not what usually first you get. And I think it's very cool to get these. And I think it's also super rewarding that we didn't just waste all the fibers. We put every single fiber into good use and had this awesome discovery.
How far away is that
star?
What is the distance of that star?
About 10 kiloparsec. This is also the reason I think most of the so this is an A-type star. A lot of these dedicated survey, because they are doing one star at a time, they are doing OB stars. So they missed this star. And because this star is much closer than the other star, these stars are all at like 50 kiloparsec coming. So because ours is so close and ours so fast, it has a very, very tight constraint that if it's coming from the galactic plane, it has to come from the galactic center, while the other ones has a much larger error bar. It can be anywhere like in the galactic plane within something like 10 kiloparsec. But for ours, it's really a few 10 parsec from the center. That's what we constrain for. Yeah, something like 10 kiloparsec from us. Okay, I think I'm running out of time. I showed you guys a few examples how we study one particular stream for one particular case. I also want to say, right, we are at a regime that we have a population of streams that we can use to do some orbital and chemical properties. So this is how the 12 stream or 12 stream that we have followed up in the first 3 years of our survey. And they are all progenitor free, which means they don't have a progenitor identified, at least we don't know, and they have a distance between 10 to 50 kiloparsec. And this is how they look like in the galactic centric frame. So I will go through this part very quickly, but I'll just show you guys one example what we can do with these 12 stream together. So first thing we did is to measure, to try to understand its progenitor, whether it's from a disrupted dwarf galaxy or global cluster. What you're seeing here is velocity dispersion versus metallicity dispersion. So we find half of the 12 stream that has a very small velocity dispersion and a very small metallicity dispersion. We think they are originally from global cluster, while the other half are from dwarf galaxy. The other thing we did is for those ones that have in dwarf galaxy, which are denoted with a cross symbol here, these are the dwarf galaxy members. We can convert from mean metallicity to the luminosity using the mass metallicity relation for dwarf galaxies. So we think our dwarf galaxies are at the faint end of the classical dwarf. There's a line around here at -8. You probably don't see it here. And then there's also on the bright end of the ultra faint dwarf galaxy. So this is what we know. The time when I wrote this paper, there was a fire simulation that they try to measure the number of streams that they have in the Fire 2 simulation with the progenitor mass larger than 5 times to the larger than 5 times 10 to the 5 solar mass. So they predict there should be something around 3 to 13 with an average of 8 streams from this kind of progenitor mass. And that corresponding to something MV of -9.5. So they are saying, right, in their simulation, there should be about on average 8 of streams to the right panel, to the right of this line. In reality, we only know one stream, which is a Sagittarius stream in our real world that has a mass larger than this 510 to the 5. So the question here is there too big to fail in the stream? Not only in the dwarf galaxy, you might heard too big to fail in the stream because there are way more streams predicted by the simulation, but we only see one that are massive enough. So this is the work that followed up by Nora Ship at that time when she was doing all the discovery work, and then followed up on the postdoc worker to look at the fire stream. So the ideal takeaway is the following. Although on average there should be 8 of them, or between like 2 to 13 of them, and 8 of them on average, but if you consider detectability, you will find only 1 to 2 of them are detectable after you adding the observational bias there. So in general, if you add that in, it still fit with the model very well, that there are way more, but they are not detected. So if this is the case, then LSST or other imaging survey will find many more in the future. However, not everything is good. Here, what are we showing you? This orbit of the stream. So this shows you the pericenter and apocenter of the stream. And what you're seeing here is for the one that we have in the Milky Way, they are all clustered at a pericenter around several to 10 kiloparsec and apocenter around 50. But if you look at all of the simulations, the streams are way farther in the apo and peri. This is everything in the stream, in the simulation. This is only considered the one that are detectable. So even you consider the selection bias or the observational bias, you still see that the streams are much further in peri and apo in its orbit compared to the observations. So we think it's either saying the simulation are over disrupting things, or there's a resolution problem that prevents we seeing more closer streams. But this is kind of the thing we can, for the first time, compare the observation with the simulation because we have ensemble of them. Okay, so I have gone through spending actually all my time that I have on one particular survey, which I spend a lot of time on my postdoc time, but that's kind of like a history. As I said, I have a great team that they can do things even without me notice that we have observing night to right now, because I'm spending most of my time on DESI now, which is another spectroscopic survey, and I'll just briefly going through this in the next 5 minutes. So DESI stands for the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument. And as a name, it's for dark energy purpose, doing a lot of cosmology stuff, like the Dark Energy Survey that I was in the past. Nevertheless, when it's bright with the moon, nobody wants a time. So Milky Way Survey got the opportunity to use all the bright time together with another survey called the Bright Galaxy Survey. And the whole survey is driven by the Bright Galaxy Survey. So they define the area, define the cadence, they define the strategy. We don't have any choice. But what we're told is every time when there's 5,000 fibers, half of fiber will belong to us, so we can do whatever we want. So it's not ideal. We don't have much of the power in the survey, but nevertheless, I will convince you this is still the best survey to spend my time on in the next few years. So this is the Milky Way survey I'm going to show. So DESI in a nutshell, it's a 4-meter Mayo telescope at Kitt Peak with 6 lens correctors to make a larger field of view. It's 3 degrees in diameter, so it's even bigger than the AET one that I was talking about earlier for S5. It has 5,000 fibers with 10 spectrographs. Each spectrograph has a 3 channel. So we commissioned it in late 2020 and early 2021. I spent a lot of time in commissioning because I was in the operation team. And we had the commissioning and the science verification data just came out and released to the public in June 2023. So everyone's welcome to play with the data. And the main survey started in 2021. I think we just finished the second year and we started the third year of observation this month. This is how it looks like, the focal plane with 5,000 fibers. So it breaks into 10 kind of wedges. Each of them goes to a spectrograph. This is how one spectrograph look like. This is how 10 spectrographs look like. So it has 3 channels, the blue, the red, and the near infrared. Goes from resolution from 2,000 in the blue to 5,000 in the red. And this is what I think the unique part of DESI. So this is what you see, the throughput of DESI as a function of wavelength. So if you include the Earth's atmosphere, you have this line, the very light line you guys see at the bottom. So it has about 30% in the blue and 50% in the red for the throughput. And just as a reference, I'm not sure how many people, I use a lot for something called a Magellan and IMAX spectrograph, which is a multi-object spectrograph. That one has a throughput around something like 15%. So although, right, this is a 4-meter telescope compared to a 6.5-meter telescope, it's much smaller in aperture. But in terms of throughput, because it's 3 times higher than Magellan plus IMAX, so actually it's almost performed as good as IMAX, but with 5,000 fibers. So this is what the Milky Way survey footprint looks like. So it looks at the North Galactic cap and the South Galactic cap, part of the South Galactic cap that you can see from the Northern Hemisphere. We are doing 3 minutes exposure. Yeah, it's 3 minutes. We call effective because it was dynamically kind of scaled with the seeing, the moon condition, but it's 3 minutes of dark time. So in reality, it's about like 10 minutes, but if it's dark, perfect seeing, no clouds, then it's 3 minutes. And the goal is to observe 7 million stars over 3 years between 16 to 19th magnitude. And this is what we got in the first year. This is the number of stars. We have already got 4 million stars with velocity uncertainty less than 10 kilometers per second. The major stars are between 16 to 19th magnitude. And I want to put another sentence here is, this is the range of the magnitude that S5 look at, the first survey I mentioned. We use AAT to observe them. We take about on average 2 hours per field or per star. And this is what we get with 3 minutes effective time. So that's how awesome it's both our 4-meter telescope. In reality, it's the moony nights that with about 10 minutes. And these are how the spectra looks like. So we can fit the data, the spectra in one shot from 3,500 to 1 micron, and we have a few pipelines to measure the stellar parameters and the velocities of the star. This is another example to show you, because I also work a lot on dwarf galaxies. So here is just one of the dwarf galaxy we followed up during SV. And what we are showing you here is the member stars were identified with DESI. So in one shot with 45 minutes, we got the velocity uncertainty as a function of the magnitude. And this is what we got from DESI, and this is from the published literature from work by Walker et al. So we find 200 members in one DESI shot and with that kind of velocity uncertainty. But I wanted to emphasize that 500 member from Walker et al. Is 60 hours of MMT time with all of those. And we just did half of it using 45 minutes. And that's what we can do with DESI. There's a lot of interesting science we're probing, most on the Milky Way halo, on the mass and shape of the Milky Way halo, and also substructure assembly history. We also try to study the Milky Way thick disk and the extreme metal pool stars. Because the talk is on stream, so I just want to show one example about the stream. So this is GD1 stream that I mentioned at the very beginning of my talk. So we didn't do any dedicated targeting because we have the luxury to just survey the entire or most of the sky. And this is what we got. So orange is SV, is what is already public to the, it's already public that anyone have access to. And the blue is from the first year data. And so far we have 2 years of data. And you can see how much we have covered in this area. So the star symbol here show you where the member stars we find. What's interesting about this is we are not only finding the streams on the main track, but we're also finding a lot of member stars would think they are member stars based on the kinematics and the velocity, but they are much farther away that we think are something people call cocoon of streams in GD1. We also go more than just Milky Way. So this is the last slide of my talk showing you that example of we are measuring the giant stellar stream in Andromeda, and we can see these shell-like features using the Andromeda data. And this is just coming from like 2 hours of DESI data. So that's how impressive it could do. With that, I will end my talk. I think I'm over time. I just wanted to show you that I hope you're convinced that how stream are interesting to study a different variety of science, and all the spectroscopic survey we are running now that will really probe a lot of those and telling us more stuff in the future. Okay, thank you.
A few minutes, so maybe a couple of questions from the audience. Grad students.
Thank you for this nice talk. I'm interested about the broken streams that surround the streams. A dark matter alternative is the self-interacting dark matter style. And in this scenario, self-interactions can trigger gravitational instability and form steep density profiles. So if we manage to probe or to detect many broken streams, can we say something about the population of dark matter halos that have a compact core or a steeper density profile with respect to the other?
That's an interesting question. I think that's one of the directions we're trying to go, right? And we want to find many more. So this is one we have now, GD1 and Colloquium. Actually, we found in this case, there's also a tiny possibility it's coming from the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, like the GD1. But nobody has tried to fit them simultaneously to see if it can cause them. So same time by the dwarf galaxy. We're also having some simulation to run and see, because we actually got more data that we actually see something here as well. So it's really like a spur feature like GD1. So I think there is some work. So right now I think in Bonato's work here in GD1, they did not assume some profile, they just assume a scale radius and then double profile, and then to fit this. But in principle, if we have many more of these kind of cases, we will be able to do some kind of profile fitting, but I don't think anyone has tried that. But that's kind of the direction I think we wanted to go eventually. But I don't think we have that many data yet. I think we want to find more of these kind of cases. Hopefully that will be seen in the area of LSST.
So
15 or 20, I think 20 parameter fit to get the orbit and the other parameters of the LMC is very nice. There's a much more direct, albeit still difficult way to model the LMC, which is just to look at the kinematics, and something like Eugene Vasiliev has done that with Gaia data. Are his results and your results consistent?
That's a good question. So we basically, okay. So this is what we can constrain for the LMC trajectory, but we can only say things about past 5 like gigayear. We cannot really say extrapolating. Extrapolating requires, I think, in our best fit model, LMC is in the first 2 form.
Right, but if we just think about the density profile.
The density profile of LMC.
Yes.
I think I thought when you say Eugene's paper, you were referring to his recent paper.
Well, there's one orbit, but there's also one on density profile. So I'm wondering if there was a consistent.
Yeah. So the one he did with the Cherry stream.
This is back in 2018.
Okay, so
Maybe we can talk about this.
Yeah. But I think there's the conclusion we had is there's no like super weird, like it all consistent with all the paper about like the Milky Way mass and the LMC mass. They are all kind of consistent with all the.
All right, we should wrap up as lunch is beckoning. For those of you who might speak with Ting, there's still spots available on both the IAS and sign up for today, and Princeton sign up for tomorrow. We'll take them clear today and tomorrow, so please do participate that. And one more reminder for Ting's EDI seminar tomorrow at 3. And I think the Joe Henry room, although somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, good. So you should all go to that. And with that, please join me in thanking Ting one more time.